Afternoon. Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I'm just going to start a little timer for myself. My name is Cheri, and I'm the Global Director of Learning at the Accountability Lab. Give you a 30-second blurb just for those of you who might not know about us. We are a 7-year-old organization working in governance and anti-corruption. We have a team here in DC, but essentially we work across 7 countries in the global south. And our aim is really to find creative ways to engage especially young people and those often outside of conversations around governance and corruption, to bring them into conversations. We also very specifically work with young change makers who have creative ideas for integrity and strengthening governance in their spaces. One of our, our flagship program is entirely based on storytelling. It's called Integrity Icon, and essentially we name and fame positive role models, civil servants who are honest and go above and beyond to advocate for reforms within the civil service in their countries. So we invite members of the community, ordinary citizens, to nominate people who they see as an honest civil servant. We then go through an extensive vetting process, and every year in each country where we work, we come up with 5 integrity icons who are these people. We then, through storytelling, make 5 documentaries of them in their environment, and these get aired on social media. It's often on national radio and on national television, to essentially highlight that there are positive narratives within the civil service in your country where corruption is often what's most spoken about. So at the outcomes level, one of the biggest parts of this program is actually engaging in narrative shift, getting people to think differently around what the civil service should look like, and also inspiring young people who are talented to enter a system of which the story might only be based around corruption. A couple of months ago, we started rethinking our theory of action at the lab, and we had this very geeky conversation around, do we actually write storytelling at the outputs level? Does it go at the outcomes level? That went around in circles for a while, and eventually we actually realized that storytelling underpins all of our work. Because while other organizations might work at the systems level, we believe that working with stories of individuals and empowering those individuals to collectively activate and create change in their systems, that's the level at which we work. But we've also engaged in storytelling more directly. For example, in Liberia last year, we created a storytelling for advocacy program specifically, where we trained 45 women in filmmaking, giving them access to tools and skills and resources to tell 15 visual stories around what it is like to be living in a post-conflict society and to try and build the future of your country. Because often women get left out of policy decisions in post-conflict spaces. And so these are some of the ways in which we try to not only use storytelling in our work, but also equip others with the skills to tell their own stories. And this brings me to some of the lessons we've learned. Firstly, we believe that unlikely networks can shift narratives within countries. And when we say unlikely networks, we mean that we don't just work with technocrats and civil servants and development people like us who are already engaged in these conversations. We actively seek others. So I think one of our greatest success stories actually of the last year, it's been longer, but we've been actively measuring it now, is working with musicians and finding people who already have storytelling platforms or who are building storytelling platforms who can reach people who are otherwise left out of these conversations. So we have a program in Nigeria called Voice to Rep. We just released an album for it. It's on Spotify. Please find me afterwards. I'll give you a link. And essentially we recorded about 12 songs from young musicians who are all talking about accountability and leading others to be actively involved in governance conversations in their country. To date, through that particular program, we've engaged 12,000 people directly through programming, and about 10 million have listened to the songs online. So unlikely networks is the first lesson. The second lesson is it needs to be sustainable. So sometimes our intervention in a country might just be sort of a stitch in a much larger tapestry. So we believe that leaving people with skills so that they can continue to tell these stories beyond our engagement is essential. So over the last few years, we've invested in film fellowships that accompany all of our programs, so that even if the lab no longer exists in that country, there are people who have the skills to carry these stories forward. And more often than not, we found that low tech wins over high tech. We use radio, we use murals, we use cartoonists to reach people where they are. We also hold town hall meetings and gatherings under trees in rural Nepal, if that is where the community is, and that's where we can find the stories. And lastly, stories should be self-advocacy tools. It's never our story to tell. People should be telling it themselves, and they should be left in a position where they're better equipped to self-advocate. And so as a lab, we're always vehemently opposed against extractive storytelling, and all of these things, the skills, investing the resources, and leaving people better equipped is all aimed at creating spaces for self-advocacy. Thank you.